Hello and welcome to the video. This is a video really aimed directly at all of those of you out there who have got into the radio control hobby through the whole 5-inch racing quad phenomenon. So you might have a Fat Shark set of goggles, you might have a Taranis or a QX7 radio, and you'll have some form of 5-inch racing quad, probably not just one, maybe two or three. Now I'm seeing lots of pilots starting to look around and figure out what else they can do with the technology, and I'm also seeing an awful lot of pilots get out of the hobby altogether by selling all their equipment on eBay. In fact, one of my patrons was in touch the other day and he was getting out of the 5-inch quadcopter multi-rotor stuff, and he had some amazing models, some Armatan stuff, beautiful radios, Fat Shark goggles, the whole thing. And I've also had a number of pilots get in touch with me that have been flying 5-inch quadcopters who are looking for what else can they do. Because to be honest, all the stuff that you've already invested in, the radio, the goggles, the batteries, and even things like all the lipo charging stuff that you've already got through the 5-inch racing quad part of the hobby, will actually allow you to broaden your horizons into the other parts of the radio control hobby with relatively little outlay. So this video is very much aimed at those of you that have all that equipment already. You've got the goggles, you've got the radio, you've got the charger, you've got the 5-inch racing quad. What else can you do? And the fantastic news is, and for those of you that watch the channel, you'll see I play with all kinds of different things, all kinds of different kinds of fixed wings, wings, scale planes, all kinds of stuff, ground-based vehicles, boats. But what I want to do was kind of give those of you who are sat there maybe with your 5-inch quad and want to try something else an idea of where you can go from here, and kind of give you an idea of the kind of cost to go in each direction. So for all of you that have already spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds on the radio control hobby, this is about what you could potentially look to do with that technology. So the first thing you can move into, of course, is going to be radio controlled model airplanes. And this is the one that most people are probably going to think about. There are more airplanes out there that you can shake a stick at, made of balsa, made of foam, made of all kinds of different things in different styles. So you've got scale, fixed wing. I wouldn't start there, but that's always good fun to fly a plane that actually looks like its bigger brother. They've also got things like gliders, discus launch gliders, and also FPV fixed wing is a big deal as well. Now, a lot of the models in this kind of area can start pretty cheaply, and you can pick a whole model up for what it would cost for a set of 4 half-decent motors for a 5-inch racing quad. So things like the Bixlers are very good fun. The Ezio 1500 was an amazing glider, but you have an awful lot of choice. Now, flying an RC model airplane is a very, very different experience from a quadcopter. The great thing about a plane is that it flies in the direction that you're pointing it, more or less. So the flying experience is completely different. And whereas I find flying multi-rotors quite a frenetic experience, I find flying fixed wing is much more of a zen experience, particularly with an FPV camera up there. And the cool thing is that these things create lift through the shapes of the wing and the air flowing over those wings. So you can actually cut the motor and you can soar about as well. You can do slope soaring, you can do things like discus launch gliders where you actually lob them up and the idea is to stay in the air as long as possible. And it's pretty easy to set these things up compared to all the complexity of putting together a quadcopter. Now, I have a video called Simple Plane Setup, and I also have one called Complex Plane Setup. And if you understand how to do the simple mixes on your radio and you understand your way around things like flight controllers, then setting up a plane reasonably well isn't going to be too tricky for you at all. So you can be in the air very quickly, and all you're going to need is a spare receiver to pop inside these things. The other thing that's really worthwhile looking at, and if you're a bit more of a speed freak, this is probably going to be more up your alley, are radio controlled wings. Now, radio controlled wings can be really inexpensive, kind of 20-30 pounds, up to 200-300 pounds for things like the Mini Drac and the Caipirinha from Team Black Sheep. But there are an awful lot of choice. There's lots of ones made for pure out and out racing. Things like the AR Mini Wing from Sonic Model I looked at recently was fantastic. Again, well under £100, comes with the motor, the prop, the servos, everything else installed. All you need to do is slap your FPV gear in it and a battery and away you go. There's also endurance wings that can fly for pretty much forever, and most of the wings these days have the capacity to pop a little FPV camera in the front and an FPV transmitter in the back, and you can fly it by looking it out the front. FPV wings tend to be a little bit less stable than a radio-controlled model airplane, but it does mean that they will loop and roll and do aerobatics, and a lot of them are quite compact. So some of these smaller racing wings can get through some pretty tight spaces, but you tend to find that wings around the 900 millimeters, the meter mark, tend to be the ones that will give you the most versatility. Again, a lot of these wings will tend to have flight controllers installed, so if you know your way around beta flight, with a bit of effort you can teach yourself iNav. I have a series on that as well. Put a flight controller in one of these and it'll make it so it's very, very easy to fly. And also, if you have a little bit of a problem, you'll be able to get things like GPS return to home as well. The other one, I'm not going to talk too much about this. This is a little bit more of a specialized thing, and actually where I started an awful lot of my stuff in the hobby are radio controlled helicopters. Now, radio controlled helicopters are a complete thing on their own. Again, you can spend ridiculous amounts of money with helis. The only thing with helicopters that I would warn you about is the amount of effort it takes to set them up and to repair them when something goes horribly wrong is huge. Setting up a helicopter head is a labor of love, and if you catch one of the blades just slightly on landing, then you're going to have to recheck pretty much the entire thing. Next thing we'll talk about then is multi-rotors, and again, just because you've come into the hobby using the 5-inch quad stuff doesn't mean that you have to just stick to 5-inch quads. There's lots of other options for you around as well. Now, you've obviously got the video multi-rotors that are out there. People like Parrot and DJI and people like that do them, so things like the Mavic and the Phantoms, but you also have lots of other multi-rotor platforms around. It doesn't all have to be around screaming around a field for 6.5 minutes at a time or less at crazy speeds trying to shoot through really small gates. Using more efficient motor setups, slightly bigger rigs, you can fly for a lot longer and you can actually explore your local environment and get views of areas that you couldn't get through any other ways. There's also the little mini quadcopters as well, things like the Tiny Whoop style, and also things like the fantastic Emax Baby Hawks as well. They are great for those days when you get an opportunity to fly in a large indoor area or it's reasonably calm outside. Those are very, very portable, and they mean that you could just keep them on you all the time pretty much with the goggles and the radio, and when you get a chance you can just pull them out of the bag and have a little rip around. Now we've finished talking about stuff that flies in the air, then you've also got lots of choice with ground vehicles too. Now this is something that I'm currently getting into. I got my first little rock crawler a couple of months ago, stuck FPV on it, and me and my friend are kind of hooked now. We're actually looking to get a couple of pretty fast buggies that we can rip around and actually chase each other around, both with FPV goggles. Now there's loads of options here: cars, trucks, rock crawlers, RC tanks, loads of different bits and pieces, and a lot of the technology again is starting to come out with FPV mounts too. But even without FPV mounts, it can be an absolute blast ripping around and having an awful lot of fun with car technology as opposed to something that's going to be in the air. And the last one I'll mention for completeness is there's also water-based craft to consider as well. There's boats, speedboats, submarines, airboats. I've actually made an airboat out of the electronics from a completely destroyed Bixler for a friend of mine, and we actually use that to nudge planes out of the pond on his property when they crash in there, because they invariably do. His planes seem to have some kind of magnetism towards that body of water. But if you do have access to water, then water-based models are fantastically fun as well. So there's lots of choice. If you are sat there with a 5-inch racing quad and you've already invested hundreds and hundreds of pounds, because a decent 5-inch racing quad's probably going to be £300-400. You got £200-300 in your Fat Shark goggles. You'll have a couple of hundred in your radio, and then you've got the chargers and the batteries and other bits and pieces. You're probably the best part of £1,000 into the kit that you've already bought and paid for. And by moving into other parts of the hobby, it allows you to continue to use the goggles, radio, charging equipment and other pieces too, and further expand the enjoyment in the hobby. So if you are one of the audience that I've been talking to as part of this video and you want to know a little bit more, then do pop a comment down below. I'll put some useful links in the description for some of the other videos that you can go and have a look at. There is an entire radio controlled universe that's waiting for you to find it. If you found that video useful or like the content, then please hit the like and subscribe button down below. If you want to go the extra step, you can become a Patreon of the Painless 360 channel and help provide support for what I do here. All the videos created here are put into playlists, so if you're interested in a particular topic, have a look at the playlist, and they all are organised in there to make them easier to use. If you're not sure if there's a video for your particular problem or topic you want to know more about, then add Painless 360 to the Google search term that you're interested in, and that should find the video, article or content about the particular thing that you're interested in having a look at.